Yes, we're good. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone. Well, first of all, welcome. It's a delight to see you tonight, to welcome the folks that are online as well. Believe it or not, this is our 117th running. Wait, no, wrong event, wrong month. Sorry. It's 117th annual meeting of the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis. And I am delighted and privileged to be your board president. And with, depending on the vote outcome tonight, I'll be going into my second year. So thank you very much. I'm thrilled that so many of you have joined us, both in person and virtually. The past few annual meetings have been less than conventional. They actually, historically, we had them in person. We'd fill this room out, then COVID hit. And for the first year, we went to a completely virtual environment. And to the credit of the team, we made it happen. Last year, we did a mixed model, a new hybrid model, where we had a limited amount of seating in here, and we did the balance of the people online. Well, that was a wonderful event as well. And yet, even today, we are still doing a hybrid environment, which shows the flexibility that the Federation has with respect to these meetings. So welcome to everybody in person and welcome to those online. We have a wonderful program tonight. I'm very excited to welcome Marc, our new Federation CEO, to his first annual meeting. Together, we will share the Federation's long-term goals and strategy for the rest of 2022 and beyond. Tonight's agenda also features this year's theme, Partners in Progress, as we celebrate and highlight great partnerships in our Jewish community. That synergy is the reason we can continue to be a strong Indianapolis Jewish community. We will also hear and see the impact that you have on critical programs and services through the Federation and its agencies, as well as how donations through the Ukraine Crisis Fund directly supported overseas humanitarian efforts as the crisis in Ukraine unfolded. We'll then move on to the business portion of the meeting, with our nominating committee report to be concluded by a video from our recent Prystowski ATID 5 trip to Israel. Normally, during this meeting, we would have an awards event. This year, we've decided to separate it, and that event will occur later in the year. Our program tonight will be a little bit over an hour. We hope that you'll stay with us. And then afterwards, we'll have a nosh for people to enjoy. To kick off tonight's meeting, we have a special musical performance from Gabriel Kolesnikov. He's a 5th grade student at Hastings Hebrew Academy of Indianapolis and has been studying for music for 18 months. His teacher is Tatiana Komarova from the International Talent Academy. He will play a selection of songs, including Sonatina No. 2 in F major, The Sunrise Run by Lynn Freeman Olson, and the French Waltz by Fritz Spindler. Please welcome Gabriel Kolesnikov.
Wow, Gabriel. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So Gabriel is an example of the quality of students that we have at Hastings Hebrew Academy, and I think we can all rest assured that we're in very good hands now and in the future. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Marc Swatez, and I am the new Federation CEO. This week marks 5 months since I started this position here in Indianapolis, and there is no place that I'd rather be than here with you all tonight for my first annual meeting. So it is my pleasure, first of all, to welcome Rabbi Benjamin Sendrow of Congregation Shaarey Tefilla up to the podium to share Dvar Torah with us. Rabbi Sendrow has been with CST for 12 years now and has brought so much to our community in that time. So Rabbi, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everybody. When Mark first contacted me to ask that I do this Dvar Torah, he made the offer because I was the chair of the Indiana Board of Rabbis. And I told him that he'd been given some out-of-date information, that not only am I no longer chair, I'm about to lose the title of immediate past. But he was gracious enough not to withdraw the invitation. So I looked up the Parsha for the week, and I was very happy to see what it was. I knew immediately what part of the Torah portion I would talk about tonight. And that has not changed. But the Dvar Torah I intended to give has changed. And it's changed because of what has been happening in America. It changed because of the number of mass shootings we have endured and the amount of mourning that we have done as a nation. So I'm talking about the same text, but in a very different sense. The text is a familiar one. We tend to call it the priestly benediction, or sometimes the threefold benediction from the book of Numbers. It's technically not the priestly benediction unless someone who is a Kohen is invoking the blessing. But here's a point. We as Jews do not bless anything. We do not bless bread when we say hamotzi. We say, blessed are you, Lord, who bring forth bread from the earth. It's a significant variation, theologically speaking, from literally blessing the bread, as happens in other traditions. So we don't bless anything, but you might say, wait a minute, we do. We bless our children. We bless our children on Friday night. And I would have to say, no, even then, we don't bless our children. We invoke God's blessing on our children. It's 3 lines of Hebrew. I'd like to go through them phrase by phrase, giving you some of the traditional understanding of this threefold blessing and concluding with what I hope is a worthwhile message for us today. The blessing begins, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and protect you. Yivarechecha, may God bless you. Our tradition tells us this actually refers to material blessings. May God bless us with all we need to sustain ourselves and to have a spiritual and religious life. V'yishmerecha, may God protect you. An interesting comment by one of our medieval commentators, may God protect you from being corrupted by the blessings of material things. When we elevate material things to a level on which they do not belong, we run dangerously close to violating the commandment against worshiping false gods. Then we get Ya'er Adonai panav elecha. Literally, may he make his face shine upon you. The commentator Sforno has an interesting take on this. He says it means, may God enlighten you. And then we get the word vichuneka, may God be gracious to you. Perhaps the lesson here is that enlightenment is part of God's grace, part of the things with which we are blessed by God, whether we deserve it or not. And then we get the final line, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And Yisa Adonai panav elecha literally means, may God lift up his face toward you. God hiding his face is the Torah's way of saying God is ignoring you. God lifting his face toward you is the Torah's way of saying that God is being mindful of us. And I frequently translate this phrase, may God be ever mindful of you. And then it concludes, v'yasem lecha shalom, and may God give you peace. Tonight, I would suggest that instead of Yisa Adonai panav elecha, instead of praying that God should lift his face towards us, perhaps now is the time that we need to lift our faces towards God, towards the morals, the ethics, the teachings that God has given us about how to live together and how to treat each other. Perhaps if we lift up our faces to God, v'yasem lecha shalom, it is then God will give us peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Sendrow. We appreciate all the great work that you've done for our community and synagogue. Being a volunteer and a lay leader in this community is no small task. It requires a lot of hard work and dedication, representing our community and working with staff to make decisions for our entire Jewish community today and in the future. As I shared earlier, our theme this year is Partners in Progress. I would like to thank my partners at our various constituent agencies for the past year. Stacy Siegel, president of the board of directors at Hoover One, someone who always took my calls. Steve Harms, JCC board chair, many cups of coffee. Miriam Dant, you and I spoke in times of crisis and other times, and thank you. Barbara Herman, your sage advice was well received. Monica Rosenfeld, Haston Hebrew Academy board president. Monica stepping down after 15 years as president of Haston. The Hebrew Academy is celebrating their 50th anniversary jubilee this summer, and Monica's family served as its president almost throughout. We are so grateful to you and to everything that you have meant to this community. Mazel tov, and thank you.
As I entered this community, my number one priority was to form relationships with all of our partner agencies, specifically with the professional leaders who have devoted themselves to this community for so long, because the relationships are not between institutions, the relationships are between people. So I'm really fortunate to be entering this community at the time we hope is the end of the pandemic, but all of our partners in progress have been guiding this ship throughout the pandemic. So I asked Leslie for this opportunity to honor and to recognize them. I want to start with our clergy. Having spent a significant amount of my own professional career at synagogues, I really appreciate the challenges that exist only in that core ground floor community institution that are our synagogues. Their leadership and guidance have been paramount for this community, not only as we confront the challenges brought on by the pandemic, but also in this year full of hate and anti-Semitic attacks in the United States and around the world. So to Rabbi Sendrow and your colleagues, Rabbi Brett, Cantor Aviva, Rabbi Jordana, Rabbi Justin, Rabbi Gettinger, Rabbi Grossbaum, Rabbi Schusterman, Rabbi Dennis, Rabbi Jenny, and Cantor Melissa, thank you all. The staff at our community agencies are truly heroes, whether they're caring for our seniors or educating our children, providing services for those in need of help, or springing to action during and after a tragic shooting incident. There are over 500 paid individuals on this campus every single day, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep us strong. So I'm going to call out my direct partners, but please know that we understand behind that none of us can be successful without all those people, dedicated partners that we have, the teams who are really doing the heavy lifting. So from Hooverwood Senior Living, Evan Lubline, the JCC, Eric Kohler, JCRC, Rabbi Aaron Spiegel, JFS, Lori Moss, Hastings Hebrew Academy, Miriam Gettinger, and thank you all. We also have a couple of new senior professionals joining us this summer who I want to recognize right now. I just want you to know that we're looking forward to Rabbi Hal's return to Beth El Tzedek, and Jacob Markey, who I was going to be here, but I don't think he made it tonight. Oh, he is here. This is Jacob Markey right over here on the right. Jacob is our new executive director for the JCRC. We're really just thrilled that you're here. So, welcome. We're really all looking forward to working with you. And now we're going to show a video highlighting all of our agency's accomplishments over the past year. So please enjoy.
The Hastings Hebrew Academy of Indianapolis is celebrating its Jubilee, COVID postponed, but in August of 2022. We will be honoring Monica Rosenfeld for her service of 15 years and leadership, and the Hastings family in supporting the academic accolades of the past 50 years. As we look to the future, we look to become a future design school. The aspect of innovation, particularly in technology, cutting edge technology, is where we're at. Coding and droning is a part of the elementary electives and very popular amongst the students. Not only do the students experience technology, but they learn the presentation skills, and for the 6th year have been invited to ISTE, the International Society for Technology Education, to present this year on the Family Tree Project that we're doing in partnership with ANU, the museum in Israel, the former Diaspora Museum, discussing grandparents, connecting Jews horizontally and vertically across the globe with our partner schools in Israel. This school also has award-winning teachers. We feature a Jeopardy winner this year, as well as for the 5th year in a row, one of our students, Naomi Cohn, won the Letters About Literature contest written to a Holocaust survivor. The heart and soul of the school, however, is really found in the Judaic experience, the vibrancy of holiday celebrations, the sensitivity, the understanding, the research about anti-Semitism and the Holocaust, the support of the State of Israel, and the immersive Hebrew language experience. The 22nd century skills that we teach our students are significant, but the gift of Jewish education in and of itself is priceless. It forges memories, strong emotional bonds amongst alumni, hundreds of alumni, and most importantly, it produces and develops the future generation of leaders for this Jewish community and for the world globally.
Good evening. This year's theme is Partners in Progress. And here at Hoover Living, I can't think of a better theme to show the community what we have done together. Hoover Living in the past year has won numerous awards at the local, state, and national level. We've won the Community Impact Award for opening up Indiana's only elder abuse shelter. We were also recognized as one of the best nursing homes in the nation by Newsweek. Throughout this past year, we've added several service lines, including Aaron Rubin Nelson Hospice, private duty home care, memory care assisted living. We have become the one-stop shop for senior care in our community. But what we were most excited about this past year was getting our residents back in the community through group outings, giving our residents the opportunity to get back to a normal way of life. We look forward to having you all as partners as we continue to grow even more in the years to come.
Thanks to the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, its board, donors, and staff for their support in 2021. The Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis has been our largest annual supporter and investor for over 100 years. Their support has enabled our agency to provide early childhood program to over 160 children and their families, 133 weeks of summer day camp to 33 children, and 26 events for the 68 members of our BBYO program. Their investment helped us bring 2 Shinshanim to our community who worked with more than 10 community organizations for in-person and virtual events. Their support helped our community follow a precept in the Talmud about teaching your child to swim by providing more than 3,000 private and semi-private swim lessons. Thanks to the Federation's support, we've served more than 500 youth and adults in our tennis program and our arts and educational programming, which continued unabated with the 1,500 people enjoying dozens of programs at the Max and May Simon campus.
During the 2021-2022 school year, JCRC's Stand Up Speak Out programs brought Jewish teens together to learn about Israel and to talk to their non-Jewish peers about Judaism and anti-Semitism. Student-to-student presenters spoke to over 200 students in a variety of classrooms. Several students completed the Israel Engagement Fellowship and deepened their understanding of Israeli politics, culture, and history. The Holocaust Speakers Bureau continues to impact the lives of students by melding the past and present with personal stories of survival and tragedy. Over the course of the 2021-2022 academic year, members of the Speakers Bureau engaged with students and community members and held keynote speaking positions at the State of Indiana Holocaust Remembrance, Jewish Community Yom HaShoah Observance, and the City of Carmel Holocaust Remembrance Program. In October of 2021, JCRC presented the sold-out concert Sweet Lorraine in Auschwitz. Frank Grunwald, the survivor of 5 concentration camps, performed 1930s jazz classics to an audience of nearly 300 people. The program moves seamlessly between these songs and the beautifully produced film segments that weave together Frank's narrative with images and several rarely seen videos. This program raised over $170,000 for the Stand Up Speak Out program. JCRC continues to work with Frank to create an upcoming full-length documentary about Frank's experiences during the Holocaust.
Jewish Family Services continues to serve as the social services entity for our community, offering services and individualized support. We are still seeing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, adding additional stressors on families and older adults throughout our city. The need for housing and food assistance programs, employment services, and mental health support has grown tremendously. How are we addressing these concerns? Together, with your support, JFS provides services to over 300 households in our local community. Here are some examples of the work we are doing each day.
There are 341 client households that turn to JFS social workers for assistance throughout the year.
Beyond immediate one-on-one support, the most important resource available for the community is our Emergency Financial Assistance Fund. Through these dollars, we've helped 66 families during crisis secure their most basic and immediate needs.
At Popsy's Pantry, 300 bags of groceries are distributed each month, and 25 older adults are receiving their groceries through the Pantry's grocery delivery program.
Please join us in thanking the 21 volunteers who come to the pantry each day to pack groceries for clients, stock and organize the shelves, pick up food donations, and deliver groceries to clients' homes.
Through the Birthday Club program, 79 children are adopted each year by their assigned birthday boss, who help make the child's birthday wish come true.
Our seasonal campaigns have seen major increases over the last few years. Last year's backpack attack benefited 80 Jewish children going back to school. We expect to have similar impact as we kick off this year's backpack attack in the coming weeks.
The Passover food drive assisted 77 households, including 47 families and 30 Holocaust survivors.
Through Adopt a Family, 252 people, including 152 kids, were adopted for Hanukkah and received dozens of items from their holiday wish lists and needs. This number reflects a 50% growth in the last 5 years.
Thanks to the Jewish Federation's Community Relief Fund, we launched a new employment program, increased mental health services, and have distributed over $98,000 in scholarships to Jewish institutions supporting Jewish life for 73 people.
Through the Kavod program, JFS worked with over 90 Holocaust survivors in Indiana in 2021. Please join us in taking a moment to honor and remember the Holocaust survivors we have lost in the last year. May their memories always be a blessing.
For more updates about Jewish Family Services and the important work being done each day, please follow us on social media, come volunteer with us, and please know that we are always here for you.
I love this year's theme of Partners in Progress because it reflects the terminology that I was working on last year, which was talk about a campus, talk about our sister agencies, talk about a team effort. And I have seen evidence of that. For all the things that we need to be depressed about, that's not one of them. And we have a new executive who is also promoting that as well. I want to thank our agencies for your hard work during a tough year, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we can go in the future. As is tradition, we're going to take a moment and acknowledge those who have passed. Please join me in observing that moment to remember members of our Jewish community who have passed away since our last annual meeting, including the loss of Holocaust survivors, several longtime lay leaders, and those who passed from COVID-19. We remember the victims of terrorism, both domestic and in Israel and around the world. Finally, we remember and honor those in the armed forces of the United States who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our great country, and those in Israel, in the Israel Defense Forces, who have given their lives in defense of the world's only Jewish state. May their memory be a blessing. Last year, the global pandemic and civil unrest significantly altered our way of life, including domestic attacks on schools and defenseless people, as well as thousands of rockets fired at civilian areas across Israel. Anti-Semitic and anti-Zionistic rhetoric increased in social media, school campuses, and even Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. While our hope is always for a world free of anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, it's depressing that another year has gone by while these acts continue. Marc?
What can we do today that will make us safer and more secure tomorrow? Indianapolis is at the cutting edge of what partnership can and should look like when fighting anti-Semitism and safeguarding the Indianapolis Jewish community. The Jewish Federation, the Secure Communities Network, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Jewish Community Relations Council work hand in hand to confront the challenges we face. We are reminded that we can and must be stronger than hate. We must strive to be an example for our children and our grandchildren on how to treat and respect one another so they can see and understand the value of pursuing a more just and peaceful world. Perhaps the most extreme example of hate in the world today is manifesting itself in the crisis in Ukraine, which for the past several months, as we all know, has undergone very heavy fighting and forced hundreds of thousands of people to leave their homes and seek refuge in the bordering countries and in Israel. We're now going to play a series of videos that have been shared with us over the past few weeks, and they're more powerful than anything we could possibly say from here up on the podium. And then after the videos, we're going to hear from Julie Sondhelm, the Clinical Director at Jewish Family Services, about what we're doing in this community.
When the crisis in Ukraine began, the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis opened a special fund. This was part of a nationwide federation effort to support Jews in Ukraine under heavy fighting, on the borders and refugee camps, and in Israel, where new Olim, immigrants, have been welcomed home. Together, we commit to this support from a deep belief in our responsibility to care for our fellow Jews and for all those who suffer. 100% of your critical dollars will and have already gone toward relief efforts through our partners' vital humanitarian efforts who are serving all Ukrainians, not only those who are Jewish. Those partnerships include the Jewish Agency for Israel, the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, JDC, World ORT, United Hatzalah, and Hillel International. The Glick family and the Herbert Simon Family Foundation generously offered to match new donations up to $50,000. We called on our community to come together to make it happen, and within days, the matching goal was not only met, but far exceeded. The Indianapolis Jewish community collectively gave almost $250,000 to this crisis fund from 269 generous donors. Thank you so much for your generous support. Next, you will see how your dollars have impacted those who have been affected by this crisis through our partners at the Jewish Federations of North America.
Моя мама волонтер, и я волонтер. Если мы не будем помогать, то никто не поможет.
Since the start of the crisis in the neighboring Ukraine, thousands of people who were trying to escape it have been coming to Moldova. Mostly these were elderly people, women and children, with men left behind in Ukraine.
Hundreds of people are coming in every few minutes, long lines of trying to get back transportation back into the cities. It's just sort of heartbreaking as you watch people come down this gated area coming from Ukraine into Poland, their lives completely disrupted.
Many of them just want to go home, but their husbands and fathers and sons are left behind fighting, and they don't know when they'll see them again. But what they do know is there is someone here to welcome them, to give them what they need, whether it's food or medicine or counseling or advice on where they can go next.
We've walked past hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. There's a series of tents just outside the train station where people can just have meals for free, no questions asked. There's lots of aid workers and rescue workers downstairs. And I have to tell you, this is one of the most inspiring places I've ever seen.
What I usually advising now is to unite, to help each other, to make us all strengthen. Because, we are all B'Tselem Elohim, and our God is mercy. If someone in need, we have to deal with it. We have to be human right now.
I've heard people say that they still don't understand how they got here, because everything happened so quickly. They still hope that they will be able to come back home very soon, but now they need our help.
As the crisis in Ukraine continues, so do the needs. The Federation's partners need your support to continue their mission. Please consider giving today.
Good evening. It is my privilege tonight to bring you greetings from Eric Fingerhut and the leadership of JFNA. Indianapolis is so important on the national level and has been for many years as one of the first organized Jewish communities in the United States. Here in the crossroads of America, Indianapolis continues to play a central role in both American and Jewish life. The Indianapolis Jewish community is one of the youngest and fastest growing in the country, with a steady influx of young people in their 20s and 30s. And as you know, what Federation does support not just local needs, but national and even international ones as well. This Federation is known for its exceptional level of support for the Israel and overseas component of our work. I want to remind you how crucial your support and the support of your community is by your ability to imagine tomorrow and ensure a bright future. Through Federation, you, our greatest supporters, take care of the Jewish people. Your support provides a multiplicity of pathways to engage in Jewish life and to address every crisis, from COVID relief to humanitarian aid in Ukraine, to aid for resettling refugees here in the U.S., to resettlement of Ethiopian Jews in Israel, to Holocaust remembrance, and so much more. I want to thank you in particular for the more than $250,000 that the Indianapolis Federation has raised for Ukraine, which is going to help so many refugees and give them a new lease on life during this catastrophe. I will talk in a moment about everything that these funds, combined with those funds from across the FISC system, are doing to help in this crisis. Our emergency efforts are, in addition to core annual support that JFNA provides, including about $100 million last year of combined funding to our partners at the Jewish Agency and JDC, and tens of millions of dollars in additional grants for special projects. So Federation is needed more than ever. The needs are so great, both abroad and at home. We are living through very perilous times: a global pandemic, the resurgence of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, terrorism once again rearing its ugly head on American soil, and now a new conflagration in Europe that none of us in our lifetimes ever expected to see. This federation is a model and exemplar for our national system. You've always punched above your weight in your dedication to the work of building Jewish life, and you've also demonstrated a tremendous commitment to reaching out beyond the Jewish community, to the Black community, the Muslim community, and many others, with innovative partnerships and programs to enhance the quality of life for everyone in the Indianapolis region. As I mentioned a few moments ago, your community really stepped up in particular to help with our efforts in Ukraine. More than $60 million has been raised system-wide, and our partners are doing incredible work, providing food, shelter, clothing, medical attention, and even performances by a team of clowns to fulfill the ancient Jewish promise to be an Or LaGoyim, a light of hope and inspiration to all of the peoples in the world. And back home in the U.S., the House overwhelmingly approved $40 billion in emergency aid to Ukraine. This relief package includes vital security, economic and humanitarian aid, in addition to funds to help resettle Ukrainians in the U.S., which is a major focus of our attention as we prepare our communities to help with this influx. Indeed, 100,000 Ukrainian refugees will soon be on their way to our communities, including some who will come to Indianapolis to join Ukrainian families who are already here. We will work closely with the federations to coordinate this whole process. We're also coping with the spike in anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism right here. The incident in Colleyville, Texas was a wake-up call. We have raised more than $60 million for Live Secure to protect Indianapolis and every other Jewish community throughout North America. Indianapolis was one of the first cities to sign on to the Secure Community Network, SCAN. We led a lot of other communities thanks to your security director, Grant Mendenhall, who has a sterling national reputation, and his path-breaking work. Finally, it's such a terrible shame that so many who suffered such unimaginable horrors at the hands of the Nazis are now at an advanced age coping with poverty, depression, social isolation, lack of adequate mental and dental care, substandard housing, and other issues, many of which have been exacerbated by the pandemic. These are the issues that the staff of Kavod at JFS in Indianapolis have dealt with. I know that you've helped more than 100 survivors since the program began just 6 years ago. Shockingly, 1 in 3 survivors nationwide is living in poverty. JFNA's Center on Holocaust Care has recently awarded more than $5 million to organizations across the country. This will enable crucial social services to be delivered to our cherished thousands of survivors. We just celebrated the holiday of Shavuos, which marks the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. We will celebrate the birth of the Jewish community as a community based first and foremost on our moral values, our recognition that all people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, since we are all made in God's image. These are the same values that drive our work through the Federation system each and every day, and these are the same values that have driven your community for generations, and that bring us together again tonight for more than a century of your Federation's annual meetings. Please keep doing everything you're doing, building strong community, helping those who need it, developing leaders, raising the critical funds through your community's annual campaign that make it all possible, and stepping up to help in times of crisis, as you have done with Ukraine. I salute you for everything that you do to make these values live and breathe in our world so that a tiny group of people, founded in ancient times, continues to have an enormous impact for good. Am Yisrael Chai.
Hello, Indianapolis. I'm Bruce Jacobson, and I'm speaking to you from Krakow, Poland. I'm here with my brother Mike, also acting as our cameraman, volunteering with the JCC in Krakow, helping to provide aid to Ukrainian refugees. I was in India in late April to celebrate my youngest granddaughter Molly's bat mitzvah. When there, I was visiting with my good friends Janie and Mickey Mount. They mentioned to me that they had a contact with the director of the JCC in Krakow and were leaving the next week to volunteer. It certainly seemed like the right thing to do. So I talked with my brother Mike, who now lives in Tucson, communicated with Mickey, Janie, and Jonathan Ornstein, who is the executive director of the JCC here. Mike and I made our plans to come to Krakow for 2 weeks as volunteers with the Ukrainian relief effort. And I must say, it's been a gratifying experience. The Krakow JCC is one of 5 major Ukrainian relief support locations in Krakow. Since late February, they not only supplement Ukrainians with food and necessities 7 days a week, but also provide a huge number of refugees with short-term housing. It's a Herculean and extremely costly effort. My understanding, it is currently costing upwards of $100,000 per week for food, housing, and other necessary costs. They're doing an incredible job in providing humanitarian relief on this scale. Staff and volunteers leading this effort are amazing. Personally, I've made a contribution from my endowment fund to this worthwhile project. It's nice to participate as a volunteer, but the reality is they need our financial support more than our labor. Let me now introduce Jonathan Ornstein, the JCC Krakow Executive Director.
Thank you, Bruce. Hi, I'm Jonathan Ornstein. I'm the Executive Director of the JCC in Krakow. Since February 24th, we've been working tirelessly to support Ukrainians that have come into Krakow. We've also been working on the border, and we have been working inside Ukraine sending supplies. And we've done that with lots of help from around the world, including your wonderful city of Indianapolis. First, we had my good friend the Mowers. So Mickey and Janie came and spent some time with us and were absolutely wonderful and worked hard here every day. And I got to learn a little bit more about Indianapolis, where I haven't been in many years. And then they sent Bruce Jacobson and his brother, Mike, and who've been working with us now and have become part of our JCC family. And every day we're trying to feed and house, provide psychological services to hundreds, if not thousands, of people, mostly women and children. Hopefully this war will be over soon and people can go back to Ukraine and pick up their lives. But until then, we here at the JCC, as the Jewish community in Krakow, next to Auschwitz, are dedicated and devoted to doing all we can to support these people that are in such need. 80 years ago, we Jews here in this part of the world were the victims and the world stood mostly silent. And now that we're in a position to help, we must not be silent. We must do all we can to support Ukraine. Now I'd like you to meet Clementina, who works here with me at the JCC.
Hi, my name is Clementina, and I'm the Communications Specialist here at JCC Krakow. When I started working here, never did I think that I would be in the line of refugee relief work. But since the war broke out in Ukraine, it has been an absolute privilege to dedicate my time to serving the Ukrainians who are coming to my beloved city. Poland as a country, we have accepted 3.5 million Ukrainian refugees out of the 6.7 million who have left Ukraine. And here in Krakow, we have about 170,000 Ukrainian refugees. Every day when I come to work, I see hundreds of people lined up trying to come into the JCC to get food and other support from us. And I have to say that it's absolutely wonderful that you all want to support us and that you are willing to keep learning the stories of these refugees. Without your help, the work that we're doing here would not be possible. Every day we feed over 6,000 people through our distribution center, and then we provide meals to many more, including those that we provide housing accommodations for. Our work would not be possible without the help of donors like you. So again, I'm truly appreciative, and so is the rest of the staff here.
Good evening. That was so inspiring. It's hard to follow. My name is Julie Sondhelm. I'm the clinical director at Jewish Family Services. We at JFS are taking a comprehensive approach to the situation in Ukraine and the impact on its citizens, as well as local community members. We've all heard and now we've seen the devastation and disruption, the many millions of refugees, and the U.S. commitment to provide shelter here under humanitarian parolee status. Our ties to Ukraine are many and deep, from our shared heritage to World War experiences, to the community of 2,500 originally former USSR refugees we resettled here, primarily in the 80s and 90s. The majority of those we resettled here come from Ukrainian backgrounds, and some still have friends and family in the region. We have many reasons why we should and do support those who are affected by the war in Ukraine, not the least of which is the day-to-day responsibility we take on at JFS for all those who come to our door requesting help. We at JFS are committed to being involved on local, national, and international levels during this crisis. We're engaged with partners who are working tirelessly to facilitate the safety of Ukrainian refugees and representing the Jewish community on calls and in meetings related to the most up-to-date changes in immigration policies, as well as conditions on the ground in Ukraine and surrounding areas. We have close relationships with local resettlement agencies in Indianapolis and surrounding areas as the situation evolves. On a local and personal level, we at JFS are already working with families who've been able to enter the US either through other borders or different kinds of visas, and with families who are currently trying to rescue their family members and loved ones from refugee camps. From the information we're constantly gathering, we're able to assist with guidance for immigration and other applications, as well as tangible support with housing, education, medical care, orientation to the community, and basic needs such as food and clothing. We're collaborating with other agencies on campus as well to provide for their needs. Those who will be arriving here under humanitarian parolee status do not have access to government benefits such as subsidized housing, medical benefits, or food support. They will have to apply for permission to work, and it's uncertain how long it will take to process those requests. Typically, in the past, the time has been about a year or so. There are efforts being made to change these policies, but the outcome is still unknown. In the meantime, they'll be dependent on the families they reunify with and on community support. We are engaged in ongoing assessment of this situation and the role that we at JFS and as a community can play to support those who arrive here. We do not yet know how many people will arrive, what kinds of help exactly they will need, or how policy shifts may affect this. You can depend on the fact that we at JFS are prepared to pivot our response based on the circumstances and community resources. We'll continue to provide insight and information on this very human of experiences that touch our hearts and the history of all of us for the purpose of strategic planning to address this crisis. Thank you.
You can do it no-handed. But I can't put things down. All right. Thank you, Julie, very much. We truly appreciate everything you're doing for us. Also want to let people know this is a demonstration of how our community can come together and under conditions of crisis. So that's great. Next up, something I've been waiting for. Would Katy and Gigi please come to the stage? Heard the moan. Yeah. If you'll stand right there. Okay. That's perfect. Thank you very much. When the Federation leadership in 2021, as we search for the next CEO, both of you, longtime volunteers and professional leaders in our community, came out of retirement and heeded the call to serve as interim co-executive directors. That was 8 months of volunteer service, and I truly enjoyed every minute of it. The Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis expresses its recognition and sincere gratitude for their wise and selfless, dedicated stewardship with integrity and grace during that time as executive co-directors and coaches, by the way, for their service in the various leadership positions within the Jewish community. Well, here's the key. I want to personally thank you both. But in your honor, we're establishing the Gigi, Marc, Felsher, and Katy Cantor Endowment Fund to assist with the attendance to future Line of Judah conferences and or annual Jewish Federations of the North American General Assembly. Please consider joining me, folks, in this fund on behalf of Gigi and Katy. Please, a round of applause. Okay, your opportunity to speak. Thank you. You want to say a few words?
Thank you so much. I'm not quite prepared for this, but I think what I'd like to say is how much first of all, thank you for the honor of serving the community in this way. And thank you to Gigi for being the best partner ever. And I just can't imagine doing it in any other way than without you by my side. So, and also to Leslie, who has been an incredible president for this community, and she deserves a big round of applause in my opinion. So, thank you.
I would reiterate most of what Katy said. It was a real pleasure and it was a real honor to be able to serve in this capacity for 8 months. And working with Katy was wonderful. We truly enjoyed working together as much as the many accomplishments we hope that we had for the community while we were working. Thanks.
All right, now to the business portion of this meeting. It's my pleasure to call on Beth Clapper, when she finishes hugging, our immediate past president and chair of the nominating committee, to present the report of the nominating committee to our Jewish community, represented by all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And again, I just got another round of applause for Gigi and Katy. You guys are the best. I would first like to thank all the members of our nominating committee for your time and help in working through this process. So pursuant to the bylaws of the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, it's my honor to present the report of the nominating committee. So the first slide will show you the list of the board of directors elected to a one-year term ending in 2023. And those people that we are highlighting, you can see they are bolded. And that is Elliot Gold and Barbara Herman. The next slide should show you the board of directors who are elected to a two-year term ending in 2024. And those highlighted are Marina Graboski and Kevin Krulowicz. And lastly, the board of directors elected to a three-year term ending in 2025, who are highlighted: Erica Abrams, Miriam Dant, Steve Clapper, and Cynthia Yosha Snyder. So may I first get a motion and a second to adopt those reports? Thank you. This is second. Thank you. I think I heard it. So all the community members who are either on Zoom, please raise your hand, and all the community members in person tonight, please respond verbally to the following. If you're in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, say nay. I hope you have none of those. Motion carries. Okay. So mazel tov to all of our newest members of the board of directors. Now, I am not going to read all the names of everyone who has continuing on, but I would like to offer our sincere thanks and gratitude for all of your service and time and commitment to the board. In addition, I would like to, and I'm going to go through this list, like to thank those honorary board members whose term are ending in 2023 and for their years of service. And those people are the following: David Barrett, Karen Cohn, Rosalie Gussow, Hart Haston, David Clapper, Gerald Kraft, Barbara Leventhal, Barb Levy, Ernie Lorch, Diane Lutz, Janie Maurer, Michael Mervis, Livia Russell, Robert Schloss, and Herb Simon. So thank you, all of them. I would now like to present the report of the nominating committee as it pertains to the slate of officers for 2022 through 2023. And I'm going to read those names as follows: Leslie Rubin, our president; Murray Firestone, vice president; Bradley Gershman, vice president; Helen Kurlander Goldstein, vice president; Greg Maurer, vice president; Karen Rothbaum, vice president and annual campaign co-chair starting in January of 2023; Michael Rothbaum, Dr. Rothbaum, vice president and annual campaign co-chair starting in January 2023; Sandy Naklas, vice president and annual campaign co-chair starting in January 2023; Jen Schwartz, vice president and annual campaign co-chair, term ending 2022; Larry Turo, vice president, annual campaign co-chair, term also ending 2022; Barry Crute, secretary; Dan Cantor, treasurer; and Barry Wormser, assistant officer. And for this part of the nominating report, I will ask that only members of the board of directors participate, as I ask for a motion and a second to approve this slate of the officers. Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, so again, all board members on Zoom, please raise your hand. And those in person tonight, please respond verbally to the following. Those who are in favor, please say aye. Thank you. Any nays? Okay, fantastic. Mazel tov and congratulations to our new officers for Jewish Federation. As immediate past president, I know very well how hard the Federation staff works in succeeding and supporting our organization's mission. In a few moments, Leslie and Marc will share the state of the Federation. But first, here's a video that shows the impact of our Federation that we have made over the past year.
The Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis continues to navigate the pandemic and its lasting effects. While we dive into this new normal, when our community is hit with challenges, we rise together and come out stronger. We ended 2021 raising more than $4.3 million, the highest achievement on record in more than a decade. The past year was considered a very transitional year for the Federation. Gigi, Marc's Felsher, and Katy Cantor volunteered to come out of retirement and heeded the call to serve our community as interim co-executive directors until Marc Swatez joined us at the beginning of 2022 as the Federation's new CEO. The Board of Directors approved a new name for the Giving and Endowment Department to the Charles A. Cohen Department of Planned Giving and Endowment. This was in honor of Chuck Cohen, who passed away in 2020 and was an avid supporter of JFGI, particularly of its endowment and planned giving efforts. Our Youth Philanthropy Indy Teen Board was renamed for Lou and Sybil Mervis following a generous gift to the program. The safety and security of our community continues to be of the utmost importance. Over the past year, our Safe Indy Community Security Initiative expanded into the entire state as Community Security Director Grant Mendenhall worked with Jewish organizations throughout Indiana to determine and respond to their security needs. Safe Indy was able to assist and secure almost $1.4 million in Department of Homeland Security grants to 9 local and 3 statewide Jewish organizations to enhance security efforts. More than 2,000 people have also gone through grant situational awareness and countering active threat training. Throughout the year, our federation held successful, meaningful programs and fundraisers, both in person and virtually. The community came together virtually to celebrate the 2021 annual campaign with a powerful and moving program. We heard from guest speakers Jeff Barabitsky on lessons learned from his wife Jenny, as well as Indy native and famous American Jewish musician Dan Nichols. A Woman's Philanthropy Lion and Pomegranate virtual event featured Noah Tishby, Israeli-American actress, producer, activist, and author. Our virtual Super Sunday one-day telethon raised more than $250,000 for more than 200 donors. More than 100 people attended the virtual annual Legacy Community Celebration featuring Sarah Hurwitz, First Lady Michelle Obama's chief speechwriter and author. Hundreds joined the second annual Hanukkah takeover of Newfields for latkes and lights. Our community Hanukkah menorah lighting attracted more than 350 community members. At the beginning of 2022, we hosted several Meet Marc Parlor events so our community could learn more about our new CEO, Marc Swatez. Then, we traveled to Florida for a series of meetings with snowbirds and a community reception. Our Prystowski ATID 5 cohort finally got their chance to visit Israel. They enjoyed experiencing Israel as a group and learning so much about everything the country has to offer. Our youth philanthropy cohort joined the ranks of more than 60 past year teen board participants. The teen board members set their grant-making focus for the year on combating anti-Semitism and hate, and held a check granting ceremony in May. NextGen rounded out the year with many great events for our young adults, including Jews and Canoes, happy hours, a reverse Teshlit cleanup at Holiday Park, a virtual cooking latke demonstration, tee off at Topgolf, Valentine's Day celebration, and Havdalah in the park. Hundreds of families enjoyed PJ Library activities, such as an ice cream social, splish splash party, Silly Hearts yoga sessions, and apple picking. In 2022, Women's Philanthropy is currently celebrating the 50th anniversary of the National Lion of Judah, with the conference being held at the end of the year. We also recently held our first in-person major gifts event in 3 years, hearing from Mayor of Indianapolis, Joe Hogsett, our CEO, Marc Swatez, Consul General of Israel to the Midwest, Yanam Cohen, and Jewish Federations of North America Board Chair and Owner/President of NFL's Minnesota Vikings, Mark Wilf. We are excited to launch a new young adult leadership program called 36 Under 36 this year. Nominations are currently being accepted for this influential cohort with an honorary celebration and other professional development events later this year. Thank you to our Federation staff. Each person on this team plays a vital role for who we are and what we do. Together, this team has raised the critical funds needed to support our Jewish community, had an amazing compassion and dedication for our social service needs, raised endowment dollars for future generations to thrive here Jewishly, done a phenomenal job of creating impactful programs and a unique online experience, visually and communicatively brought to life many components in order to tell our story, provided key operations and technology staff that kept our federation afloat, and provided much needed accounting services that tracked our fundraising dollars to then allocate them out to our agencies, synagogues, and organizations. We have had a terrific year thanks to your support. Coming off the heels of celebration, we are excited for the next year. With the theme Imagine Tomorrow in 2022, our goal is to get back to a $5 million campaign so we can provide basic needs for the most vulnerable, combat anti-Semitism, educate our children, care for our seniors, support Israel and those overseas communities who need our help, fund the Safe Indy Security Initiative, which sadly is needed more and more as we see news coverage of violent attacks on a regular basis, and strengthen and promote Jewish identity for today and with a life and legacy gift for generations to come. Thank you to our generous donors. We couldn't do this important work without you.
We're not doing too bad tonight. We've managed to kind of keep the thing rolling. Well, first, again, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We truly appreciate it. We appreciate those who have joined us online as well. You know, it only seems like yesterday that I was standing here. Actually, I was standing over there last year. It's an interesting feeling to be here a year later. When I spoke to you last year, I had a limited appreciation, a limited understanding of what I was getting myself into, I can assure you I've learned a lot. I stood up here following Beth, assured you that we were going to be approaching a new steady state in the pandemic. Believe it or not, that speculation on my part actually appears to be trending in the right direction. I also cautioned you that we would continue to experience political turbulence. Little did I know that it would be a war between Ukraine and Russia and its secondary impact on the rest of the world. While the past 12 months have been a bit of a blur, I can assure you again that I've learned a lot. More importantly, the question is, what have we accomplished during that time? As you have seen the film clip, and you'll also see something about ATID coming up, I wanted to share a few examples, actually, of what we have done as a group. We successfully went through a leadership transition. With the departure of the former JFGI executive, a leadership void was created. I can't say enough how valuable the efforts of Katy and Gigi were during that time. Thank you for stepping up. Last August, we formed a search committee of 10 accomplished, diverse individuals. It was wonderful to watch the group coalesce under the leadership of Greg Maurer and Barry Wormser. We selected an excellent search firm and began the process of identifying, and I'll get my paper right here in a second, identifying candidates and narrowing the field. I'm here today to tell you the process produced multiple options from which to choose, and we got the best candidate in Marc. Thank goodness he said yes. The team set a deadline of finding the right person before year end, and they met that goal. We asked ourselves, how could we improve our performance as stewards of community funds? We addressed this in 3 ways. Under the leadership of JFGI Treasurer Dan Cantor, there was a renewed focus on fiscal accountability. I am pleased to tell you that his patience and persistence, along with the support of Erica and Josh, the Finance Committee, the Endowment Committee, the Investment Committee, and the JFGI officers, yes, it was an inclusive process, will result in the formation of a new and separate investment pool to manage agency and non-agency custodial funds. Okay, that was a lot of gibberish. What does that really mean? And you could ask, why are we doing this? The answer is complicated. It requires more time than I have today up here to explain it to you, but suffice it to say, it's the right thing to do. Dan and JFGI staff, as well as lay leadership, are also in the process of developing a long-range plan to enhance the performance of donor-advised funds. In August of last year, a task force was formed to look at the operating model of Jewish Family Services. There were a number of reasons to do so, not the least of which was the increasing cost of insurance and the potential for risk to JFGI fund assets. The task force met 8 times between August and December, a process that included seeking input from other organizations and national experts. The task force made recommendations that JFS cease being a department of JFGI and reconstitute as a separate 501c3 entity with its own independent board. Motion was taken before the officers, vetted by Marc, and approved at the May Executive Committee meeting. Finally, the third thing was fondant software was implemented in 2021 by the JFGI endowment and fiscal teams. The benefits of doing so include enhanced cybersecurity, better fiscal protection, and more transparent reporting. The process was involved, time-consuming, and like all software conversions, full of challenges. I want to thank Erica, Vadim, Josh, and Diane for their commitment and diligence to seeing the process through. So you've already seen the video on Ukraine and how our community pulled together to raise funds. That is an evidence of how this community can work as a team, and I'm very proud of that. We heard about P&A that distributed over $4 million in 2021 to ongoing agencies in the second year of COVID. At the end of that process, there was a great deal of interest and discussion in valuing the how, the what, and the when of the P&A process. So I'm pleased to tell you we formed a task force with members of the community as well as agency leadership, and we're going to be sitting down and reviewing the P&A process this summer and making recommendations, hopefully before the end of the summer. For years, you've been hearing about Jacob's home and the need to find a new location. The sale of the property was successfully achieved in 2021, and thank you, Jeff, for all the work that you did on that. Once this was accomplished, funds were set aside for the residents, a new location was identified, renovation plans developed, and hopefully, if all goes according to plan, the residents will be moving in before the end of this year. We continued the effort that was started in 2020. I don't believe, or let me put this way, I believe that the hybrid model or the Zoom models are here to stay. I don't think we will be in a situation where every meeting will continue to be held in person. I think that the dynamic, the evolution here is something that, as I said, we're going to get better and better at. We are already improved over last year. So that is one of the things that I believe is going to continue. It demonstrates a flexibility. It demonstrates an ability of this federation to be able to move forward with the times. And then finally, we were able to complete, as you'd heard, complete the ATID leadership trip to Israel in April. And we look forward to seeing that film clip that apparently this group bonded very, very well. So the question is, where do we go from here? Oh, did I move it that time? Sorry. One of our efforts that will unfold later this summer is a review and update of the bylaws. Did you know it's been since 2006 since we've had people take a look at those bylaws from a legal perspective? So our hope is by doing that, we're going to do two things. One, which will be to align them with current law in the state of Indiana. And the second thing will be to allow for some governance restructuring that perhaps everybody will be pleased by. And it will be something I think people will welcome because it'd be a more interactive structure. As I mentioned already, the executive committee of the board recently voted for JFS to become its own 501c. Why I'm popping in and out of here. Next steps in that process will be the formation of a new task force to work with JFS to look strategically at the market they serve, their business model, and to develop a timeline for that separation. And finally, security is something that's going to be with us for a very, very long time. We're going to continue to have a campus focus. We're going to continue to touch with it, figure out what we need to be doing next, how we need to be operating. And this will be, as I said, a focus for us on a going forward basis. Marc, would you like to come in and share a few words?
Sure. Thanks, Leslie. And thank you for everyone for being here tonight, and to Rabbi Sendrow and to Julie Sondhelm and to Beth Clapper for your roles. And a very special thank you, of course, to Leslie, my fellow MC, and our president. I can't imagine doing this job without you. You're really, what you've done has been absolutely indispensable to me. You are a blessing for me, and I think really an asset to the entire community. So thank you. And I look forward to our year ahead. When I was on this job for about 6 weeks, I went down to Florida and I spoke with our snowbirds, and I prepared my really first big talk, which was no small feat after only 6 weeks on the job. And I thought I delivered a pretty good speech. So the next morning, Josh Lotto and I went out to breakfast with Bruce Frank, and he gave me a very honest critique of what I did. He was gentle, but he said, okay, so here's what you really ought to have spoken about. He said, you should talk about, what the Federation does, what we ought to be doing, and what we can't do without more support. So in honor of Bruce, I'm giving you that talk tonight. So what do we do? During the interview process and in my first few meetings here, I was told that the Indianapolis Jewish Federation should do three things. We should raise money for our agencies and our beneficiaries. We should provide leadership development for the next generation of community leaders. And we should serve as the convener for community engagement and experiences. And these are critical tasks, and they are absolutely important, and we're going to continue to do them. Those are absolutely things that we need to do. And we've seen some really great videos tonight about all of those things. So I'm not going to linger on any of them. Except I do want to say that none of it happens without people behind it to do that work. And the people, more often than not, who's behind it to do that work is the staff of the Jewish Federation. Most of them are standing in the back of the room right now. So if you take a second, I want to give a round of applause to my team. They are simply extraordinary. So while fundraising, leadership development, and community engagement are vital elements of what the Federation does, you should expect and demand more from us. It's not enough. Which brings me to part 2 of Bruce's talk. What should we be doing? It's no secret that my biggest job at the Federation is to raise money for this community. But in order to do that, I need to be able to tell you, to tell all of our donors, what is the return on your investment to the Federation? As a legacy organization, the reality is we're just not sexy anymore. You don't see our ROI on the grassroots level. That's just not where we tend to operate. But as you've already seen tonight, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the Jewish Federation was helping. And the Federation was helping within hours of the incident of everything happening. As Marc Wilf said when he was here, You have to build the firehouse before the fire. You can't build the firehouse when the fire is already on us. And here in Indianapolis and really around the whole country, that your Jewish Federation, we're the firehouse. It's our job to have those relationships going both up and down the state at every level to affect immediate change when immediate change needs to happen. It's plain to see why that's important when there's a global crisis, but it's also important for us right here at home. We have to have the relationships, the vision, and the trust of our community so that when something needs to get done, whether it's resettling immigrants, supporting a Jewish education system, caring for Holocaust survivors, or keeping our institutions safe, fixing an aging aquatic center, we have to have the resources to direct to make it happen. And we're operating right now in a system and in a structure that's been around successfully for generations. But in a post-COVID world, when the nature of Jewish identity, volunteerism, and what work means have all radically changed, we have some revisioning to do. We need to rethink the mission and the vision of the Federation and align it with what the community needs. We need to re-examine our leadership structure, think about how we are led, what we do as a Federation, and consider the nature of our relationships with our agencies, our synagogues, and the other Jewish organizations. How do I identify those who haven't yet engaged with in the Jewish community? How do people identify as Jews in a world where identity itself has become politically charged? What is our responsibility to support statewide, national, and international organizations? What do we do about the situation on college campuses? As the state's largest Jewish community, what ought we here in Indianapolis do to maintain the security needs of Jewish spaces across Indiana? And of course, last but certainly not least, what should we do to meaningfully support Israel? As a federation, as a community, we need to answer these questions. This is our challenge. It's up to our board, our senior leadership, our partner agencies, our synagogues, and the other Jewish organizations to have these big conversations. We need to ask big, difficult questions and then act on the answers for the benefit of the Indianapolis Jewish community. So, part 3 of Bruce's talk, what can't we do without your help? Sitting at my desk for 5 months now has been a tremendous privilege. You've all opened your arms, your doors, and you're even starting to open your pocketbooks to support me, which is great. Thank you. But it hasn't been without its frustrations. There are too many programs. There are too many opportunities that are simply passing us by. Some of these programs are things that we've even had here in the past that Indianapolis has been able to take advantage of, but we can't do it anymore. And others are new and exciting opportunities that are making an impact in other communities, but we're not able to implement here because we just aren't able to do it. So for example, we need more programs to combat rising anti-Semitism at every level. Just yesterday, the National Terrorism Advisory System announced that in the coming months, we can expect the threat environment on faith-based institutions, religious minorities, and perceived ideological opponents to become more dynamic for acts of violence. We need to do something about that. We need to bring shlichim back into this community. These emissaries for Israel have been had a tremendous impact on us here. They've affected our camps, our schools, and they've organized community-wide programs and celebrations that I know you've all attended, that I know you all enjoy, that I know are valued in this community, and they're missed, and we need to bring them back. People have sat across from me, and they have made compelling cases for lots of different things. Meals for seniors, crisis relief trips, synagogue agency collaboration, kosher meals at Hooverwood, a subsidized 8th grade trip to Israel, and the list goes on, and each one of them makes a compelling case, and they're absolutely right. We need to do these things. We ought to be doing these things and more. Indianapolis is a vibrant Jewish community, and we should be able to provide the full gamut of Jewish experiences that you would find in any comparable community. But right now, at this moment in time, we can't. Some of you might remember the past when Indianapolis Jewish community was seen as, like Marc Wilf said, punching above our weight. We were known as the highest per capita giving in the nation, And I think sitting here today, I think for a long time, we've thought about that as being the good old days. I reject that. I don't think it's true. I think our best days are still ahead of us. But in order to get there, we need your help. Something in what I said here tonight, something in what anyone said here tonight must have spoken to you. So let's lean in. Let's make that happen. That's something that you can do. You don't have to do everything. Just do one thing. Because if everyone does just one thing, think of the amazing transformation that we're going to have here for our community. That's my pitch. I'm going to wrap up now by giving you the very best reason I have for feeling so optimistic. The Prystowski ATID 5 mission to Israel just got back a few weeks ago. It was by far the single most powerful thing that I've done since I arrived here. And I know looking around the room that a lot of you are past participants as well. And I know that people are only going to participate in this community if there's perceived value in a shared experience, just like we had on the ATID mission, because it motivates you, it brings you together, it creates relationships in a way that you just can't create in any other way. Something kind of cool happened with us, though. While we were on this trip, a camera crew followed us. And so we have professional video, professional interviews, and I am very pleased tonight to have the world premiere of our travel agencies. It's their publicity video that they gave to us because it's all about us. So we're going to share that right now, which is our final thing for the night. That's it for me, except to say once again, thank you so much. It has been my honor and my privilege being here. I've only been here 5 months. This is already home for me. You guys are all amazing. I want to meet each and every one of you again and again. I've made it through most of you once, but let's do it a second and third and a fifth time as well. So thank you again, and let's watch the video.
Very much looking forward to what they do, how they build and go from strength to strength.
They really are going to be the future leaders of our Jewish community. And the opportunity to have this informal time with them, to talk with them, to really hear what they're thinking when they're experiencing things for the very first time, has been really transformational for me.
Jewish Federation is sometimes hard to understand. It's either just fundraising or it's just community. And we bring people here so they really see, touch, and feel what it is. I think they're going to have a really big, more important connection to Israel. They're going to have a connection to the partnership. They'll have personal connections to people. I also think they'll understand more of what Federation does.
This is about imparting identity. You know, in America, there are so many different opportunities to have identity. You can be, you know, your school identity and your home identity and your work identity. But the Jewish identity is something that can sometimes really fall by the wayside. That's why we come here, and that's the whole purpose of being here for these missions.
I always knew how important it was to give your time and your effort and your money when you can. But then, you know, coming here and learning all that we have is just that much more important. When you need help, if a Jew needs help, another Jew will be there for you, no matter what.
3 words to describe my day: energizing, tiring, thought-provoking.
So many subsets and so many other cultures that find this land to be valuable and feel as though they have a claim to it. And it's been wonderful for me to be here and respect those cultures and enjoy this land together, as opposed to feeling as though there's an us versus them element to the experience.
Feel the communal, the national, the Zionistic, the even military component to it that I didn't get as a child growing up in America.
More important than understanding is to feel. You know, I understand my children, but sometimes I don't really understand them, but I always love them. And so it's the emotional connection that is the most important thing, to emotionally connect with the people of Israel. That's what I want them to feel, and I think they are.
There's nothing more important than having the personal connections with people, the kind of connections that you can only get on a trip like this.
I can really understand how it's so transformational for people to come to Israel. This is both our first time visiting Israel, and it has been completely overwhelming. Our hearts are full. It's been a really great experience.
We are here for Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut for a reason. We want people to experience and hear the siren and feel the excitement and feel the shift in the days.
You know, the darkest moment of my time here was introspective, realizing that I had never tried to see it. Sadly, I had never tried to see it from the perspective of these other groups that feel as though they have a claim to the land, recognizing that and admitting that, and then realizing that I have to grow into the kind of member of the American Jewish faith tradition that can not only forward our own views, but also respect and appreciate those of other types of religions and ethnic groups.
I think it strikes me, and I'm reminded at how volatile and special humanity is. We're humans. We make mistakes, and yet we learn from our mistakes. So I think it never gets ugly, it is never boring, and it's always amazingly beautiful to look at our land and realize we created this out of nothing.
It's incredible. Really impactful. I didn't really know what to expect. Be here from the beginning to that point, literally to see the light switch into the evening for Yom HaAtzmaut was unbelievable. The country doesn't stop in the United States like it stopped here. And you felt it everywhere you went. There were reminders of that. Here, it has felt like from one chapter to the next. That's what it felt like.
It was a little bit overwhelming to see a whole city come to a stop. They were longing for their loved ones who were lost. It was very emotional. It's very, very heartwarming.
What could be more amazing than being with tens of thousands of people running around Jerusalem, singing and dancing and spraying each other with with shaving cream and bonking each other on the head.
Really celebrating what today was after a very somber day prior.
I think a trip like this really gets people excited and makes you want to do more. Even if you're already doing a lot, maybe there's something else I could do. Maybe there's one more thing and one more thing, kind of like what Chabad does, right? Okay, today you do one mitzvah, tomorrow you do two, right?
This trip has kind of surpassed our expectations every step of the way. We haven't stopped from morning to evening. We've really been able to see so much, and there's no better way that we could have experienced this together.
This is my first time leading a mission, and I really learned the impact that a mission like this can have on a group. Every single one of them had found something very, very meaningful to take away with them. I think it affected not only them individually, but I think it affected their attitudes toward Israel, and I think it certainly affected their attitudes towards our community as well.
I just can't wait to come back, and already trying to figure out when can I come back and experience Israel again, because no matter how many times you come, there's always more to see, always more to learn, and I look forward to that opportunity.
I cry every time I go home. So this is my other home. I miss my family, my friend family, and I love it here.
One sentence to summarize the whole week: a meaningful combination of American and Israeli, but together Jewish.
There we go. That was amazing. I mean, I could stop right now. You're going to leave the room and go, oh, that was a great film.
Yes, London. Let's
See,
brush teeth.
someone's already called for the motion. I'm done, folks.
Come on, London. Sure.
So actually, I do need him. We've had a wonderful evening tonight. I want to thank Marc. I want to thank Sasha. I want to thank, a whole group of people who I've probably not mentioned tonight, but thank you everyone, because your contribution made this event a very nice event, and I appreciate that. All right, I do need a motion to adjourn, please. So would someone be so kind as to do that? And, thank you very much. Afterwards, we have a nosh. Please join us. We would welcome that. And thank you for coming tonight. That's it.